Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Fresh Stories Book Chats, which is one of my favorite segments to do. We are here today with somebody very special who is one of our very favorite Fresh Starts experts who has a book coming out. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So, who are you, Fresh Starts expert?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. My name is Oona Metz, and I'm a therapist based right outside of Boston. And I just wrote Unhitched, the essential divorce guide for women.
Yeah, which is really the essential divorce guide for women. So, let's just jump into this. Why did you feel the need to write this book in particular?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I have been a therapist for 30 years, and about 15 years ago, I went through my own divorce and a little more than that. And when I went through my divorce, I really wanted a support group to attend because I just wanted to know I was going to be okay, and I wanted to hear from other people, and it didn't exist where I was, and so a little seed got planted in my mind, and I decided, when I'm healed enough from my divorce, I'm going to start a group, a support group, and so I did in my practice, and for the last 15 years, I've been running these 3 weekly divorce support groups. So I've seen hundreds of women through the process. Um, and in the old days, there was a book that I used to recommend to them called Crazy Time. It was written in 1992. And it was a great book, but it got kind of more and more outdated. And my clients kept asking me for books, and there's good books out there about like infidelity or the financial aspect of divorce or the legal aspect of divorce. But I couldn't find one that was written by a therapist just for women, just about like the emotional journey of divorce. And after every group I ran, I started to take notes about like different concepts or different insights. And like after every group, there was something really like just this little gem where I was like, this could be so helpful to more people than just the people sitting in this room. And so I finally just decided I have to do it. I have to do it. And then it was born.
It was. So, take us through the book. If somebody is considering buying Unhitched, what
Hmm.
is the emotional journey that this book takes you through?
Hmm. Well, I really start at the very beginning, which is when you might be deciding whether or not you want to get divorced, or your spouse may have decided for you. And so, really taking people from the very beginning and really focusing on the emotional piece of it. And then taking people through, like, how do you tell people? How do you tell your kids? What's the difference between talking to your best friend and talking to the barista at your favorite coffee shop, right?
Mhm.
Um, or another soccer mom or something. Like, how do you figure out how to tell people? Um, we really also go through kind of what you need. How do you assemble your team? Um,
Mhm.
and how do you put into place a self-care plan that's really going to work for you?
Yeah.
Um, and then taking people through all the feels, feeling
Mhm.
all the feels, and some chapters on like how to manage all those feelings that are going to come up. Um, what the stages of grief might look like in a divorce,
Yeah.
how they might be different or similar to when somebody dies.
Mhm.
Then really talking about boundaries, how you renegotiate all your boundaries, a
Yeah.
couple chapters on kids and really taking care of kids and co-parenting. And then I finish out the book kind of really talking about identity and creating a new sense of identity, and then also dating after divorce. So it's really like soup to nuts from the very
I was gonna
beginning to
say,
the very
yeah.
through the whole thing. Yeah, yeah,
What doesn't Unhitched cover, right? It covers everything. It's like your
right.
best friend in your pocket, truly.
Mhm.
I know this is kind of a silly question, but like, who is your ideal reader for Unhitched?
My ideal reader is any woman who is either going through a breakup or a divorce. I think the book could be helpful for all genders, but it's specifically written for women because that's the people that I have worked with. That's my kind of
Mhm.
expertise. Um, and for people who are considering divorce, for people who are going through it, but also for people who have already gone through divorce. I was just speaking on a podcast the other day, and the podcaster had been divorced for a year and a half. And she said, I read your book, and there were these pieces that really stuck out to me. And I really like learned a new thing about myself
Mm,
and about my divorce. So, and it would be a really sweet gift to give to somebody else who's going through divorce. So,
yeah.
I mean, we all know somebody who's been through it or is
Mhm.
going through it or, you know, so I think
Yeah. It's true.
it's got a wide appeal, I hope. I hope it's
Yes.
gonna help a lot of people.
As I think about the book, and it is so fantastic because, spoiler alert, I read it. But
Great.
as I think about it, I think about the woman in the middle of the night who reaches for this book, next to the bed and just holds it close to her heart and is like, "I'm not alone." Right? Like I know it's almost like this whisper network of people who are like unhitched, right?
Yeah.
Like I know
Yeah.
that there's somebody else out there, and sometimes that's all it takes, right? Is that
Yes.
one person, and that's the power of books and of
Yeah.
writing. And I think we still don't talk until now about the identity shift, right? That truly
Yes.
comes with
Huge.
divorce. It's huge, and it's really hard to explain. It's almost like becoming a parent, right? You can't
Mhm. Right.
explain what it's like to be
Yes,
up all
yes.
night with a screaming baby.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't explain what it's like. All of those feelings you explain in the book and you really dig into, that those feelings could all happen within a millisecond
Yes.
at once,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
really throws you. And
Yeah.
I think, and I was gonna ask you about, like, people like me. I'm 6 years divorced, but I
Mhm.
loved the book. I got something from it. Have you been finding that, like you said, from that podcaster, like,
Mhm.
if somebody's listening to this and they are already divorced, there's still a lot of learning they can get from this?
Oh, absolutely. And also, I hope if people are going through a divorce or they're in the beginning stages, I hope they read the book once. And this is a book where it's so easy to jump around from chapter to chapter. Nobody needs to read this book from page 1 to page 350. Like you can
Yeah.
go in and be like, you know what? I just want to read about kids right now. I'm going to jump right to chapter 7.
Mhm.
But I hope that people will come back to it after time. And because I think that our feelings and thoughts about our own divorces change over time. And I think if you read it once and then you read it again in a year, you're going to have a different reaction to it.
Yeah, I like that.
And
It's true.
and then I also hope that you actually give the book away. So I really want people to buy the book, but I don't want you to
Mhm.
keep it forever. Like I want you to read it and maybe you'll keep it and read it again in a year. And then I really want you to give it away to somebody who needs it. And if you don't know anybody going through a divorce, which is kind of weird, you need more friends. No, just kidding. If you don't know anyone going through a divorce, then
Yeah.
gift it to your local library, gift it to your local women's shelter,
Mm,
put it in one of those little
yeah.
libraries because somebody else is gonna need it and come upon it at just the right time. I also
Yes.
just wanted to go back to something you said about having it on your bedside table.
Mhm.
For some women, they may not want other people to know they're reading the book, like, for instance, their spouse or their kids.
Mhm.
So, we also did a record it, an audiobook version. It's in my voice, and I want people to know that they could get the book and have it in their ears, and nobody is going to know that they're listening to it, right? You
Yes.
can listen to it on the subway. You can listen to it while, your kids are watching TV in the
Mhm.
other room, and they will have no
Mhm.
idea. And so it's a safety
Yeah.
issue, I think. I mean, it's partially just a preference issue. There was this in the old days, people thought listening to books wasn't
Yeah.
like reading books, which is
Silly.
bull.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and this is something we're really big at Fresh Starts. Everything we do is either on the podcast or on the blog because we want people to be able to safely listen to things. So we love that you did that, and I can't wait to hear it in your voice, but I might cry through the entire book. The question I love to ask writers before we go is, if somebody walks past this book in a bookstore and they get
Mm,
nervous to buy it because once you open Pandora's book, you cannot go back, what would you say
mm.
to that person?
Just because you read a book doesn't mean you have to take action. I think women think about divorce for a really long time, a lot of times before they act. And there's lots of things you can do to nurture yourself, to get more information. Buying a divorce book doesn't mean you have to get divorced, right? Speaking of bookstores, like you go into any bookstore. And when I was doing research for this book, I would go into every place I went. I'd go into bookstores, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of books on sex, dating, marriage, you know, a- and every kind of relationship you can imagine. And then there's like two on breaking up or divorce.
Mhm.
And I almost feel like people who buy the dating book, like half of the people who buy the dating book or the marriage book should also
Mhm.
get the divorce book for free the
Yes.
since divorces will happen to half of
Yes,
those
yes,
people.
divorce
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Totally. And a question for you too is something one of my issues with self-help type books is
Mhm.
that often the author didn't really go through the experience necessarily that the person is going
Right.
through. Now you've been through divorce.
I have
Did
twice.
did writing this inform you about your divorce in any way?
I think the biggest thing that it did was it helped me. I still was carrying shame. And when I wrote the first version of the introduction, because in the introduction, I talk about my own personal journey. And when I wrote the first version, it had one divorce in there.
Mm.
And my editor came back and my friends came back and they said, you've got to come clean here. And I realized that what was holding me back was a level of shame that I was still carrying about being
Yeah.
divorced twice and the shame of also like being a therapist and being divorced twice. Like somehow a therapist should know
Yeah.
better, you know.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, I get a
and
lot of therapists who come to me for advice, but yeah, I think that that's what made this book particularly special for me is that you open it up with your story, and
yes.
that's something that's really important because 'cause you're saying, like, "I've been through this twice," right? I
Mhm.
have children, I understand. You've done a little bit of every part of the divorce process,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important because then you're opening your heart to the readers, and then they could
Yeah.
trust you.
Yeah. I didn't want it to be some kind of, you know, up on high, I know all the answers, I'm a
Right.
therapist, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. I really wanted this book to be, like you said, a companion. Like, this is
Yeah.
your friend. This is your best friend, and you're going through a divorce, and you're talking to your best friend,
Yeah.
and your best friend is talking to you. And it's so, I didn't want to use psychological jargon. It's not a I think it will be a book that's very useful for therapists to keep on their
Mhm.
shelf, but
Mhm.
it's not an academic book. It's not written just
That's not who it's for,
specifically
right? That's
for
not yeah.
therapists,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
written for anyone who's going through a breakup.
Absolutely. Well, I cannot recommend Unhitched enough, and if you look I think we actually were saying this today that a divorce happens about every 45 seconds in America. I think it's that.
Wow.
So, if you know somebody going through a divorce, if you're going through a divorce, I'm just gonna keep a stock of these that I can hand out at
Uh-huh.
the PTA meetings. And
Uh,
so I just this truly is the essential guide for women going through divorce, and it's going to completely shift the way that people are talking about divorce openly with each other, just like another life transition, right? Like a job loss or anything like
Absolutely.
that, because it happens, and this is the
Yep.
guidebook to help you through it. So
Yep.
it's available for pre-order now, but it's coming out in January for divorce month. And we appreciate you so much and the work that you do. And I'm just so excited to get this book into the hands of so many people who need it and they won't feel alone. And they'll feel like it's possible. And that's what the book gives people.
Yes.
That it is,
Yes.
you don't have to be stuck here forever. You're not alone. It's not as isolating as you think because you have, Una here who she's gone through it and she will help you along the way. And
Yeah.
that little spark will save so many people's lives, truly.
Mm. Oh,
So we appreciate
thank
it.
you so much.
Of course. The show notes will have the link. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Una, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much. I love, love, love being part of the Fresh Starts community and being a Fresh Starts expert. It's just been such a gift to get to know you and Jenny.
Thank you.